Hello, friends. Let's discuss the war in West Asia. Now, the idea of today was that we discuss current affairs for the whole of February 2026. But then we realized that, we'll start with the war. Yeah, I know it's not an auspicious beginning, but matter of fact, let's start with something that is happening now in the days to come. We'll bring you a lot of these kinds of videos, and in the second half of the month, we'll try and discuss a few questions instead of just have an open session like this. Now, in this session, I'll take you through the entire war. I'll bring to you a particular understanding of the war. This will be an unbiased, objective, understanding of it. Please make sure that you comment. You're free to feel, you should feel free to comment, because comment is free. So, ladies and gentlemen, what is this war about? So, of course, I titled it Wartime. Unfortunately, it's wartime. This is Ali Khamenei. Now, this particular graphic, you will find a lot of maps in this particular talk. And apart from the map, of course, there will be a lot of notes as well. I'll take you through this entire presentation in certain ways. One, we'll look at basically where the US led forces are attacking in Iran. Of course, where do the Americans and others have military bases, as this map would capture. We'll look at a few more things. I'll take you through the presence of American forces, military forces in West Asia before the war started. We'll look at the actual, location or geographical location of West Asia. What does it mean? We'll look at all the countries. I'll bring to you a snapshot of major countries here in this part of the world. Then, of course, we'll look at the Strait of Hormuz. Then we will look at as to what exactly has been the major reason why countries are going to war with, while majority of countries in the West are going to war with Iran. Okay, so let's look at this particular part of the world. This is West Asia, my friends. This is Ali Khamenei. Ayatollah Ali Khamenei is dead. He was a supreme leader of Iran. Now, you could see this in this particular map, that you can see that the squares here are Iranian strikes. The Iranians have struck in all these parts of the world, while the Americans have struck in Iran in these places. There is this Chabahar. Chabahar is a place where um, you know India has built a naval base. Okay, so you see, this is Tehran. Tehran is the capital of Iran. And how big is Iran? I'll bring to you a snapshot of Iran, but just to bring in something here, Iran is about 16 point, I'm not very sure what's yeah, it's a red color. Yeah, Iran is about 16.48 lakh square kilometer big. So, ladies and gentlemen, that makes it 50% of India's area. It's not a tiny country, guys. India's area is about 32.87 lakh square kilometers. Iran's about 16.48 lakh square kilometers. So that makes it 50% of India's area, but its population pretty small. Its population is about 9 crores. Okay, so you see these countries here. The Americans are going, the Americans and the Israelis. This is Israel. I'll come to you in a while. I'll come to this particular in a while. You can see this is Yemen, of course, Oman. If there is one country that's not participating in, that has not been an objective of, the Iranians to fire, to bomb, it's Yemen. We'll come to that in a while. It's already bombed into oblivion any which way. There is Syria, of course, Iraq. These are countries that you should all be familiar with. I'll bring to you a note on each of these countries. So the idea behind this session is to make you familiar with something that's pretty important, something that's vital for our understanding of the world today. Ladies and gentlemen, please make sure that you kind of, get a hang of these things, because these things, whatever is happening here, is shaping the world today, and maybe it's going to shape the world for years, maybe decades to come. So what's happening here? There's war happening, but look at this. The Americans already have a major naval, before the war started, the Americans have had a major, naval presence here, military presence here. You can see that, Americans have military bases in all these places, and you see this Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar. Now, many people say that Qatar is a pro-Iran country or pro-militant country. Now, why would they say this? Because when it comes to Hamas or Taliban, the Taliban, which rules Afghanistan, this is Afghanistan. You see, this is Afghanistan, Pakistan, and of course Iran. Now, the when Taliban was out of power between 2001, that is 2001, and 2021. For 20 years, starting 2001, the Taliban had a major, office in Doha, which is the capital of Qatar. Hamas's military, what we say, Hamas's military and political office was located in Qatar. Some say only the political, but no political decision, no military decision could take place without sanction from the political office in Doha. So we could say that both the military and the military and of course what is it the political offices of Hamas were in Doha. No, nowadays things aren't very good for Hamas, my friends. So, in which way, ladies and gentlemen, you can see the Americans have had aircraft carriers here, they have had strike groups, destroyers, frigates, and its biggest naval base, military base, is in Qatar, my friends. They have a base they have multiple bases in Kuwait, they have military base in Jordan, you can see, in, of course, you know, Saudi Arabia as well. So they are there everywhere, my friends. The Americans are there everywhere except in Iran and maybe, yeah, Syria. Okay, the bigger powers here. So it's not that the Americans just, weren't very well prepared. The Americans were quite well prepared in the run up to the execution of the war. Okay, so what are the code names of this war? So this is pretty important for us to understand. See, how do they think? The Americans have called it Operation Epic Fury. Epic Fury. Okay. And of course, the Israelis, which of course, have called it, Roaring Lion. Roaring Lion. And the Iranians have called it True Promise Fourth. There is certain significance behind this name, but this is religious significance. True Promise 4. So these are the code names of the military operations. Okay. So you would often find that the Americans use this epic fury quite, in almost all kind of literature on the war, on the happening war today. Yeah. The happening war, actually. So let's go to West Asia. This is a pretty good way of looking at the world. So, ladies and gentlemen, I want you to become familiar with this. Yeah. So see this. Let me switch it off so that it wouldn't move. Yeah, the picture. This is Saudi Arabia, the biggest country here, and it's a Sunni country. When I would discuss this, please know this. It's pretty important for us to understand that you know we at time are pretty objective. We don't take sides. We don't discuss religion. We discuss political happenings as they happen. I mean, political happenings as they happen, in the sense that we don't take sides. Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, in Islam, there are plenty of sects. Okay. And the major ones would be Sunni and Shia. So, the most the most powerful Sunni country, Muslim country in the world would be sorry, Saudi Arabia, while Iran is Shia, the most powerful Shia Muslim country in the world. What are the differences? How are Sunnis different from Shias? We don't really need to get into that, except that they disagreed on the vital question of who would succeed the Islamic prophet Muhammad. Okay, so as you know, the most important figurehead after God in Islam is prophet. Okay, Prophet Muhammad. So who would succeed Prophet Muhammad was the question, and they disagreed about to who would succeed. So in the case of Shias, it is believed, the Shias believe that Ali, who was the son-in-law of Prophet Muhammad, would succeed, the revered prophet. While in the case of the Sunnis believed, other people, now we know they are Sunnis, but in those days, people who didn't agree with that succession of Ali, so they said that no, Abu Bakr would succeed the prophet. Okay, So that's how they kind of went away, went separate their separate ways. And since then, small diversions, small changes led to bigger ones. And today they are at each other's throats, my friends. Okay. See, this is Sunni, this is Sunni, this is Sunni. The Raja here in Bahrain, it's a tiny country, okay? The Raja here is Sunni, but a substantial proportion of the population is Shia. And also know that Eastern Saudi Arabia here is, you know, Shia. So 68% of Iraqi population is Shia. 74% is Sunni. In Sunni, in Syria, 74% of the population is Sunni, while Jordan is Sunni, Lebanon is equally split between Sunni and Shia. Then, of course, you don't really need to know about Turkey and all these countries. But this is Israel. Israel is a very powerful country, my friends. It's tiny. How tiny is this? It's about 20,770 square kilometers. Can you believe this? Just 20,770 square kilometers. And compare that with Iran, 16.48, Saudi Arabia, huge, my friends. I don't want to get into the area, exact area, because it's quite confusing. Um, Israel and Iran see each other as existential enemies. Existential enemies. That is, if this exists, we won't exist. So that's how they see each other. Any which way, there is you see this here again. Kuwait is Sunni. Okay. One more thing, Syria, for a long time, a particular family called the Assad family, ESSAD, Assad family ruled, Syria from the 60s till a couple of years back. It was ruled by the Assad family. Please know that the Assads were Shia. Okay, so Iran had a simple way from Iran, Iraq, Syria. You got it? The ruling house was Shia, to Lebanon, where there is a major militant group called Hezbollah. Okay, so this is how they came to hurt Israel, through proxies. Proxies like Hezbollah here and Hamas in Gaza. Got it? Yeah. And here in Yemen, you also need to know that, all these countries, there is in Yemen a militant group called Houthi or Houthi. These are Shia Zaidi Muslims. Okay, they control only the western part of the country, only this part basically. Fair. So this is a bit about the this part of the world, and you would find that the Kurds, there are Kurds here, Kurds, who have been fighting for a separate homeland called Kurdistan. They've been fighting Turkey, Iraq, and of course, Iran, and of course they're also here as well. Northeast Syria. Fair? So I wanted you to become familiar with this. Now you can see here that Oman is in a color yellow, while Abu Dhabi is in a different color. What do you call it? Green? Let's make it green. I am not very familiar with these colors. You see this here, up this particular part. This is again Oman. Okay, so this narrow stretch of land, narrow stretch of water you see here, it's called the Strait of Hormuz or the Hormuz Strait. So, ladies and gentlemen, let me bring to you the Hormuz Strait. Then we will get into the reasons behind this entire thing. So, this is United Arab Emirates, Oman, Oman here. Okay, this is Iran, and this is this. This is the Strait of Hormuz. 20, anywhere between 20 and 22% of the world's oil and gas, let's call it energy. Okay, energy resources pass through this. How narrow is this? At its narrowest point, it is about 39 kilometers. Some say 34. Do not worry too much about it. Okay, 34 to 39. Let me put the numbers here. So, they've been, everyone's fighting here basically. The Iranians, you would have read that they have closed the Strait of Hormuz. And the Americans say, no, 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 we hold it. But the Iranians say, look, no ship is passing. If you were holding it, how come no ship is passing through this? Because we hold it, we are not letting any ship pass through this. Every ship that is not registered outside, any ship that is not Chinese is not allowed to pass. Let me put it this way. Only Chinese ships are allowed to pass through this. Do you know why? because majority of Iranian oil and gas goes to China. Goes to China. Yes, yes, that's how the world works. Now, a little beyond this, my friends, you see this here. Uh, you see these lines here, shipping lane, this way, that way. It's kind of roads, you understand this? Because hundreds, thousands of tankers pass through this, there has to be a certain order. And this is the order in which the tankers go, like this. There is a certain order. It's a road kind of thing, basically. Okay. So, where you as I said, and let me repeat, the Iranians have said that they have closed the strait. That's why no ship is passing. Before all of that, what is a strait? I did not tell you this. What is a strait? A strait is a narrow channel of water that connects two water bodies, that separates two land bodies. Let me tell you, a strait is a narrow channel of water that separates two land bodies. So you see this here, this peninsular portion is separated from Iran through this narrow channel of water. But in India and Sri Lanka, we have the Pak Strait, P-A-L-K, Pak Strait. So this is how the word works. Let me take you further on this. You'll find that, this particular thing, the Iranians haven't closed this, neither have the Iranians nor the Americans have closed this. Who has closed this? Why aren't ships going through this? You know why? Because insurance companies have said, we will not pay you for any damages if your ship goes through this strait in times of war. There is current war. Yes, there are anywhere between 7 to 12 insurance companies which have said that and all these are headquartered in London. They have said that we will not pay for insurance any damages. We will not pay insurance for any damages that would happen. When the ships would pass through this. So if you come under attack, you are on your own, basically. No money will be paid. No insurance, will be paid for any kind of risk. So the companies now say, the shipping companies say, hey, if there is no insurance, it would mean that we cannot move our ships around, because no port would accept that is shipped into their harbor. No port would accept, no insurance company, no company would load goods basically onto such a ship. So because if there is no, there is no insurance for the ship, obviously there is no insurance for the cargo that travels by it. So companies have said this. It's not the Iranians that have said, that are controlling this. No. It's insurance companies that have put pressure on the shipping companies. We will not pay you any paisa if any damage happens to your ship. Okay, that's why they have stopped. There are no ships passing through this today. Okay, that's the reason, not what you read in newspapers. So why basically, what should you know about Iran? I'll bring to you a bit of fact sheet about Iran. Then you will understand how powerful Iran or not powerful Iran is. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, this is a fact sheet. We discuss the area, then the population. Of course, you see this. This is the latest one, 2023, and you can say that this is also the estimate for 2025. But you see this. The GDP is $375 billion. You may say, hey, for a country of 9 crore 9 crore population, that's a pretty small GDP. Ladies and gentlemen, the GDP used to be $600 billion. Would you believe that? $590 billion is, I think, the highest GDP they ever had. From 590, or take 600 round figure, it has come down to 375. Why? Because of sanctions, because of economic sanctions. We'll come to that in a while. See, in the beginning of the year, they were saying that Iranian economy might grow about 1%. It's unlikely to grow at 1%. It may actually even contract. It would produce less. Its GDP would decline next year, this year, meaning they would produce that much less. They're going to produce less output than what they produced last year. So the economy might contract. Now, you can see that the per capita income and all, oh my God, 40 to 50, India has about 3,000. But you have to understand that inflation is extraordinarily high. Okay, years of sanctions, more than 2 decades of sanctions have destroyed the country, my friends. You need to understand that inflation today, because see, when there are sanctions, because there are sanctions, no country can buy, sell, Iranian oil basically. They cannot buy Iranian gas. That meaning Iran cannot sell to any country in the world just like that. We that in India cannot buy Iranian oil and gas just like that, because there are UN sanctions, because there are US sanctions, because there are European Union sanctions, Japanese sanctions, Australian sanctions, Canadian sanctions. All of these sanctions would mean that if we, let's say, our ONGC buys some oil and gas from Iran, then American law says that any country that deals in with Iran shall be open to being sanctioned. So ONGC could be sanctioned. So we don't want to buy anything from Iran. So what has happened is that Iran has been given some permission by the UN to sell oil and gas on humanitarian grounds. You recover that money when you sell stuff. You earn money. You use it for medicines, food, and all that. That's what they've been saying. But because of intense scarcity, because Iran under sanctions has not been a normal country, there's a great deal of scarcity in the country. That has pushed the prices of, that has pushed up inflation. Inflation today is said to be around, you know, officially it is, something like 20-25%. Unofficially, it's said to be 75%. And some people, hacks, critics, they say that it is about 150%. Okay, so I'm not going to get into whether it is, what are the right numbers, because in a country like this, where information travels, only at the whim and fancy of, either spy agency like Israeli Mossad or American CIA, or if the government wants it to travel. So government controls the narrative. Government controls the narrative because government controls access to information sources like Instagram, Facebook, that is social media and everything else. Okay. Now you see the exchange rate. If you have a dollar, $1 in that is $1 will get you something like 14 lakh riyals. This is the Iranian currency. 14 lakh riyals. Can you believe this? 14 lakh riyals would come to you in your pocket if you have $1 when you exchange it. Okay. If you have a rupee, 1 rupee, it would give you something like 13,000 rupees, 13,000 riyals. Yes, yes. Can you believe this? Yeah. So with 1,000 rupees, you could be a crorepati in Iran. If you have 1,000 rupees in your pocket, you go to Iran, you could be a crorepati. Okay. So that's a little about Iran, my friends. From here, let's go to what exactly should you know about Iran? Why countries, in the Gulf, in West Asia, in all these places are waging a war against this? But a little nutshell, in a nutshell. Okay, we discussed this. It's the largest Shia Muslim country, and it's also a country that rivals Saudi Arabia for the leadership of the Islamic world. It says we want to be the leader of the Islamic world, but consequently, please understand that Iran's while it's a leader of the Shia Muslim world, you also have to budget for the fact that majority of the world's Muslims, a little over 120 crore Muslims, majority of them are Sunni Islamic practitioners. Okay. Now the rest are within us divided among a lot of other sects, and within this, Shias basically, make the majority, my friends. Okay, so about 10 to 12% of the world's Muslims are Shia. Estimates vary, but that's about it. Okay, but majority of Muslims are Sunni, Islam practitioners. So they rival this. And if you would think that I'm, speaking in air and there is no rivalry between countries, I'll tell you something. Mohammed bin Salman, the Prime Minister and Crown Prince of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, in an interview, you know, recently, just a fortnight back, um, you know, he said that Iran wants to capture, Mecca and Medina, and wants to control the Islamic world. Now, ladies and gentlemen, where is Mecca and Medina? Yeah, you would be wondering. Yeah, you would be wondering. Let me bring to you Makkah and Medina. I think So, oh, I think we just we missed that. Yes, this is Mecca and this is Medina. So these are the two holiest Islamic shrines. The two holiest Islamic places are Mecca and Medina, and Saudi Arabia is the custodian of the royal family of Saudi Arabia, is a custodian of these holy places. Okay, so the Iranians say that, rather than Saudis say that Iran wants to capture these and dominate the Muslim world. So I'm not going into that, but remember, these are the words of the crown prince of Saudi Arabia, not some gully corner, political analyst. Okay, so they are fighting. They want control of the Islamic world, and of course, since 1979, Iran has had a clerical administration. In till 1979, Iran, till mid 1950s till 1979, Iran was a monarchy, was an absolute monarchy. There was intense degree of corruption, nepotism, arbitrary detention, torture, and all that. So people were quite fed up. High degree of unemployment, inflation. People could be arrested by the secret police of the Raja, by the king of the Raja of the king. So they were all fed up, and they looked up to the Islamic clerics for to deliver them from such atrocities of the monarchy. You know, um, of course, the guys came and they brought in the revolution. The Raja was thrown out, and these guys came to power. And from between 1979 and 89, a guy called Ayatollah, he is a supreme leader. Okay, officially called Rahbar. Let's call him Ayatollah Khomeini. Ayatollah Khomeini, and he died in 89, and he was succeeded by, from 1989 till 2026, he was succeeded by Ayatollah Khamenei. So these guys, now who is this guy? He is a supreme leader. Supreme leader. Remember this: most powerful chap in Iran is the supreme leader. Not a leaf would move without the sanction of the supreme leader. That's what they would say. Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, pretty powerful chap. And there are comments or something. Let me see if there is something I can. Okay. So I have not switched it on. So I put it in the. Huh. So you see this. The idea behind this is that they have put in place a system where they control every lever of power, my friends. The clerics, the religious hardliners control Iran today. Okay, there is parliamentary democracy in the sense that there is a president, there is a parliament, but they're all subject to the women's fancies of the supreme leader. Okay, the guy is dead. Khamenei has been killed. Speculation over his successor is there, but his son is there. He has been said to be Mostaba, Ali Mostaba. Okay, he is going to be the next. Supreme leader of next Ayatollah of Iran. Okay, so it has always viewed two major countries as enemies of Islam: America and of course Israel. Israel, because it says that it had occupied the land belonging to Jews. Okay, so it says that we will wipe Israel off the map of the world. Exact words of the previous president of Iran, called Mahmoud Ahmadinejad. Okay, so good evening, Jyotish Kumar. So here we are talking about Iranian attitude towards Israel. They hate it intensely. They have openly said it. It's a policy. The number one goal of the foreign policy of Iran is to destroy Israel, kill the Jews, take back the land, and create an independent Palestine. This is what they said. These are not my words, my friends. Okay, so they believe that Israel shall not exist. Now, who do they support? They can't take on the Americans. They can't take on the Iranian, Israelis just like that. So they have their own proxies because of the physical distances. They have proxies in place. Like for example, for decades, they ran Hezbollah. Okay, but in 1980, Hezbollah was created in 1982, and it's in Lebanon. In 1982, Hezbollah Hamas 1987, Palestine, Gaza, and of course Houthi. These are gone. You would have seen how the Israelis have cleaned this up. Hezbollah is gone. Okay, and of course Houthis, they remain. They remain in Yemen, but they have also said something more. They have said that they have said that we will not attack any ship that passes through the Red Sea, join the coast of Yemen, is subject to, we will bomb it. They say we will bomb it. We will not let any ship go past, go past us. So the Americans first bombarded them. The Israelis bombarded, and they said that. Later, the Israelis found that the Americans have entered into a deal with the Houthis and saying that no, the Houthis said that we will not attack American ships. The rest we don't know. Yeah. So the Israelis even today have a major enemy called Houthi. Hamas is more or less decimated, cleaned up. Hezbollah has been cleaned up, but Houthi still active. Not as active as it would want to, because its master, who Iran, is in a very bad shape. So earlier, the training material, the arms, the ammunition, the paisa would come from Iran. Now Iran itself is under siege. That's why it's in a bad shape. Okay. So Iran wants to build nuclear weapons. That's what we are given to understand. How true it is, we don't know. Okay. So let me take you further on this. Why Iran shouldn't have nuclear weapons? Why Iran shouldn't have nuclear weapons? Let me put the phone on. Iran shouldn't have nuclear weapons because of the treaties it is a part of. It has signed a treaty called the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, or the NPT. Okay, NPT, ladies and gentlemen, is called Non-Proliferation Treaty. Proliferation means spread, basically. So what does it say? It started in 1968-69. Okay, this treaty says only P5. What's P5? Permanent 5 members of the UN Security Council could have nuclear weapons. Only the Americans, United States, UK, France, Russia, and China could have nuclear weapons. The rest of the countries anywhere in the world couldn't have nuclear weapons. That's what they said. Okay. And India said, hey, this is bad. This is discriminatory. We shall not allow this to happen. How is it that you could have nuclear weapons and we can't have them? Well, these P5 said that these are for our security. And we said, what about our security? If we have a nuclear China, it would bully us if we don't have anything to match the Chinese in terms of weaponry. Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, it has so happened that India has not signed the NPT. India did not sign the NPT, calling it discriminatory. And the Pakistanis, as you would say, haven't signed the deal because India hasn't signed the deal. The Israelis haven't signed. Okay. The Iranians have signed. And what does it say? The deal also says that the treaty also says that, okay, P5 could have nuclear weapons, but the rest of the countries to the treaty, signatories they are called, they could have, nuclear enrichment technology, that is uranium enrichment technology, to generate power, electricity. So the rest of the countries could have such nuclear technology to enrich uranium, to generate power and everything. So civil nuclear, use, not military nuclear use, but only civil. Under this, though it has signed this deal, the world has continued to accuse, especially America and Israel have continued to accuse, Iran of pursuing rather a secretive nuclear weapons program. Now they say that Iran, you have a secretive nuclear weapons program. Iran says, hey guys, no, we don't have anything of that sort. We are enriching uranium primarily to generate electricity. Okay, because of sanctions and everything, our electricity generation is our gas supply and everything is not great. But if the world says, if you have nothing to hide, that is, if you have been enriching uranium in your nuclear reactors, why don't you open the nuclear reactors? Okay, they say you should open the nuclear reactors because Iran is also a member of the UN, and the UN has an agency called IAEA, International Atomic Energy Agency. International Atomic Energy Agency is a UN body that has a mandate to visit countries, visit the nuclear plants to ensure that no military activity is taking place in those nuclear plants. Okay, so the world has often asked the Iranians, you guys, you say that you don't want to build a nuclear bomb, then what are you afraid of? Why don't you open the doors of your nuclear reactors? Let the inspectors from the IAEA come visit, certify that you're not been doing what you claim to be, what we claim to, what we believe you're doing. If you're not doing, let them certify that. But the weird part is that the Iranians have consistently refused to let the inspectors from the IAEA visit any of its nuclear plants. And it has a lot of nuclear plants. Okay. So it has nuclear plants in Natanz, Fordo, Isfahan, plenty of places. Now, nowhere has the UN inspectors been able to have the inspectors been able to visit. So there's absolutely no way for us to know whether the Iranians are enriching enriching uranium or not. Okay. So guys, I'm going a bit slow because this is quite a tough topic. And second thing is, I don't take sides. I don't have anything here. I'm your teacher, so I'm only here to tell you what's been happening. And this is a comprehensive, lowdown on this particular. It's a kind of an explainer. We don't want you to believe that we take sides, because we don't take sides. Okay, and we are going a little more elaborate than what I budgeted for, because this is let this session not be off baked. It's not like we are influencers and we want to influence the thinking. We have nothing here. At the same time, we want you to know a little more than what a normal talk like this would give you. Okay, so a little lowdown here. So because of consistent refusal of the Iranians to open doors of their nuclear reactors to outside inspection, the UN and the European Union, three major entities, they imposed sanctions. The sanctions said that no foreigner could invest in Iran, no foreign company could invest in Iran, no, what we say, no one could sell goods to Iran, no one could buy anything from Iran, no one could sell any goods to Iran without any clarity or without any clearance from the UN. That's what they said. Okay, so what's happened? Iran's economy has gone down, my friends. Drastically, it has gone down. I told you, from 575, take $600 billion, from 590, $600 billion to 375. You could understand where it's going, isn't it? So the economic growth has gone down because goods are not coming into the country. There is a great deal of scarcity in the country, which has also pushed up inflation, everything. And if you are a foreigner who's invested in Iran, because sanctions now, you would say, hey man, I would not want to put my money here because I would not be allowed to do business anywhere else in the world. Yeah. So you pull out your money, isn't it? So foreign resources go out. What do? You exchange your local currency for foreign currency. As it is, the Iranians have pretty little foreign exchange reserves. So whatever is there, it goes out with you. Okay. And of course, unemployment is widespread. One problem is that there is a double whammy in economics. There is something called misery index: high unemployment, high inflation. And that, you see, one side you don't have a job, I don't have a job. Second side, the prices are very high. So whatever little money I have gets me a very little of what I need to consume. You got it? So um, it is said to inflation is said officially is about 9% or something. Unofficially, it's likely about 20% of Iranian men and women are unemployed. But when it say youth unemployment, youth is up to the age of 25. Some say 29. Some say 34. Definitions vary. Okay. These are all actual economics definitions. So I think the UNDP takes it up to 34 kind of thing. So youth unemployment in Iran is extremely high. It's something like about 29 to 31%. Okay, so nearly more than, you could say, more than one fourth of Iranian young population, youth population, is unemployed, and whoever is employed also earn pretty little. Okay, that's why a lot of Iranians have left the country and gone past, have gone abroad basically. Okay, so young people, when young people leave, there are fewer hands in the country to push the country towards economic development. So it's not that the Iranians haven't sat down to discuss things, my friends. They have. Okay, but you see this in 2005, Barack Obama and all these guys, they sat down. They said, "Okay, guys, let's talk." Barack Obama signed a deal called JCPOA, okay, under which Iran, many sanctions were lifted, and Iran was allowed to enrich uranium up to 3.67%. This is what you require to generate electricity, 3.67%. Okay. So the discussions were between the P5, permanent five members, plus one. What plus one? Germany. Okay, this is Germany and Iran and Iran. So all these countries sat down, discussed, and they said, "Okay, bhai, okay, let's." Iranian said that we will roll back our nuclear weapons program and all that. We will not do anything secretively. That's what they say. Okay. Um, Everything went up, of course. As you can see that when the sanctions aren't there, what would happen? Yeah, sanctions lifted, increased energy sales. They could sell oil and gas. Yeah, and of course, investment came in. And overall economic growth happened. But that joy wasn't long lived, because in 2020, Donald Trump, my friends, he pulled out. 2018 itself. Yeah, when he came to power, he said that okay, we will. This is Trump's first term. Okay, then came Biden, and then again Trump now. So he said that no, I believe the Iranians have been cheating us. They are developing nuclear weapons. So he pulled out and he put sanctions again, and again things went bad for the Iranians. Okay, so but the Iranians have said that we will not give up our right to enrich uranium. The Israelis and the Israelis and the Americans believe that while Iran was given, choice, or rather chance to enrich uranium up to 3.67%, they are currently, their enrichment level is at 84%. 84%. How would I know? Well, not I. How would the Israelis know? See, the Israelis say that we know Iran like we know Israel. We know Tehran, like we know Jerusalem. We know Tehran like the back of our hand. So we know everything that is happening in Tehran. You know how they killed Khamenei? They used traffic lights. They hacked traffic lights. You understand that? Yeah. So they have hacked telephones, networks, and everything basically. So 84% is what they're said to be enriching uranium. This is a danger that's pretty close to the number called magic number 90. If uranium is enriched up to 90%, then it could be used for weapons to build nuclear bombs. Yes. Where are the Iranians? Alleged to be around 84. What's required? 90%. We don't know how true it is. So it is in light of this, my friends, you need to understand, sanctions, and the Iranians have refused. See, many countries say that if Iranians don't have anything to hide, why be so secretive, man? Yeah. So look at this. Since 2010, how this particular line is, inflation rate has been going up and down. Officially, unofficially, it is 45%. Yeah. It could be more than that actually. Yeah, it's like, I believe it's around 75, 80, because I've been tracking this country for ages now. Okay. And you see this, when Biden was resumes negotiations, sanctions were maintained, but Iranians carried on whatever they were doing basically. Okay, they are in a very bad shape, ma'am. You saw the exchange rates, yes. And by the way, this graphic came from statista. What is not ours is not ours. So obviously it is theirs. I found this to be pretty interesting. That's why I carried this here. Statista is the website which has given us this graphic. They source it from International Monetary Fund and of course some press reports. So today in the last 10 minutes, my friends, yeah, let's look at something like this. Many people say that Iran has major influence. We saw that, Iraq, yeah, we saw Syria in the past and Hezbollah. Hamas in Palestine, of course, then Yemen is home to Houthis, who they support. Yeah, they also have had support of Qatar in the past. They have had support. They still continue to have support of China and Russia. Okay, I'll come to this. But how it is shrinking? They still support. Iran supports Iraq, but Iraqi Prime Minister has recently said that we will not get involved in this war that Iran is waging because we don't want our people to suffer. Yes, they are Shia Muslims, but they say that my country comes first. But Iran over the decades has cultivated hundreds of militias, local rebel groups and warlords and all, who have come in handy. Recently there were lots of protests in Iran. You must be wondering, you must have wondered, hey, this guy has not been talking about, protests that have been happening, rocking Iran. See, these are all corollaries, chota small things. Please know that. Okay. In a big country like that, there have been umpteen number of times when there have been such protests. But this time, what happened was, while the protests were massive, longer lasting than previous times, who subdued them, who killed them, who killed about anywhere between 6,000 to 12,000 protesters? Shia militias from Iraq. They were asked to come to Iran to take on those protesters. Please understand, these are the people who killed, those protesters. Anywhere between 6,000 to 12,000 protesters died. These are estimates that vary. Okay. The government official estimate is about 1127 something, which is always low. So, Iraqi Prime Minister Mohammad Shia al-Sudani, he said, my country will not get involved. Though, Iran has supported this country. Because it supports because it's a playground, nothing more than that. Russia and China. 1 week before the war broke out, before the Americans and the Israelis launched attack on Iran, the Russians and the Chinese were in Persian Gulf engaging in military naval exercise with Iran. Do you believe that? Yes. Yes. So they were there. A lot of weapons, Iranian weapons, have come from China. But, and in return for what? Iranian oil and gas that is purchased by China through a shadow network, not internationally, shadow network, okay, stealthily. And Russia, of course, you see the war in Ukraine, a lot of Ukrainian, casualties come from drones that were supplied by, yes, you got it, Iran. The Shahed drone, which is also wreaking havoc on the Americans and Americans and their allies. The Shahed drone. So the Russians don't want to get engaged in this because they know that we can't stand a chance. We already have a major war, Ukraine. Houthis, they're local, they can't do much. But the Iranians have suffered in a very different way. Yeah. So they saw that their biggest proxies who were waging a wars for decades against Israel have not, withstood Israeli attacks. Hamas is clean bowled in Gaza. Hezbollah in Lebanon is clean bowled. Yeah. So in the 12-day war that happened last year, Israel first bombarded the country of Iran. And see, Iranian Air Force doesn't exist. You understand that? Like the way we think Air Force is. Most of their aircrafts, fighter aircrafts, are from the 1960s and 70s. You got it right, 1960s and 70s. Okay. And these are the ones that were, purchased by the previous monarch, the last monarch. So they stand no chance, my friends, against the F-35s, F-18s, F-15s, and all that. So they had this, anti-missiles interceptors, S-300. They had bought from Russia. But unfortunately, the Israelis took them out, clean bowled of the entire air defense system. And then the Americans came in, dropped bunker buster bombs. They're called MOAB, 12,500 kilo bomb, mother of all bombs. You know, alleged nuclear sites where they had enriched uranium and everything stored. They dropped those bombs there. Okay. So the the Iranians could do nothing. The leadership could do nothing except fire some missiles onto Israel. Yeah, at that time also, please understand that the Israelis could intercept almost every missile, not all missiles. There was some damage in Israel as well. Okay, but the Iranians have always said, "Oh, there is Muslim Brotherhood. We are all together and all." Look at what have they done recently. Now, the Iranians calculated, they miscalculated in the current war that, like the past, the Muslim world will, rally around Iranians. It didn't happen. Why? Because the Iranians attacked Muslim countries. They attacked United Arab Emirates. If they had attacked the American bases in Qatar, UAE, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, things would have been okay. But they attacked public places. And that is where they lost public support. They lost public support. And this was a deliberate plan. But unfortunately, they failed big time. So today, there is a great deal of anger in these countries, United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, and all, against, towards Iran. Okay, they say that, look, we have done nothing against you. We have had nothing against you. We may have hosted bases, but these have been there for decades. Yeah, but the Iranians, haven't listened to these things. So last one, shifting goalposts. So why the war? To push the Iranians, yeah, to do something. But what? No one knows. You must be wondering, why is Bharat talking like this? My name is Bharat CJ. You must be wondering why is Bharat talking. Because, see, Trump said our goal is not to destroy Iran. Our goal is not to, regime is not for regime change. We are not interested in all that. It is for the people of Iran to decide who should rule them and all that. We want to kill a couple of ghost guys and all that, but that's about it. Yeah. So shifting goalposts. But now he says regime change. And second thing, yeah, regime change is fine. It is for we will destroy. The Israelis have been bombarding Israeli Air Force has been bombarding Iranian security headquarters everywhere around the country, including police headquarters. Because these guys, if these barriers are removed, security police, local police and all, military police and all, they are removed, then the people can take on the political leaders and throw them out into the dustbin. That's what the Israelis and the Americans want. Now they want a regime change. But I put a question mark. Do they really want? Because they don't know what could come next. There is a great deal of fear in West Asia. If Khamenei, Masoud Pezeshkian, the current president, and the hardliners, are all thrown out, who would rule Iran? Who would succeed them? No one knows, my friends. No one knows. That's why, what next? No one knows. Because, see, a lot of countries have suffered a great deal. For example, Libya is a good example. Libya, my friends, is a country in North Africa. And that country, my friends, just a second, that country in North Africa, North Africa, saw the ousting of the dictator. What's his name? Muammar Gaddafi. And after that, what happened? Since 1969 till 2011, Muammar Gaddafi ruled Libya with an iron fist. But once he was thrown out, the country today is on the verge. It has been in a civil war for since 2011. Libya has had a civil war. People have no peace, my friends. Syria for decades has had no peace. Iraq today is stable, but since 2003, when Saddam was ousted and everything, things have been pretty bad for almost 15 to 18 years. Things are a bit stable now in Iraq. That's why the prime minister there, he doesn't want to wage a war that would destroy his people's happiness. So we don't know what might happen, but keep yourself occupied with what's happening. It's good to know things, my friends. It's not good to be dumb. It's not good to be ignorant. It's good to be well informed. So, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you learned a few good things. Thank you for being here. Have a lot of fun. Please, comment, leave your comment on the in the in the comment space as to whether you like the session or not. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you.